Howdy and welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, brought to you by the legendary White Stallion Ranch in the shadow of the Tucson Mountains, along with Basecamp for veterans. In the West, Cowboy Up is more than a saying. It's a way of life defined by grit, hard work, and self-reliance. And that courage is the heart of the mission of Basecamp for veterans. This podcast is dedicated to honoring the Cowboy Up spirit. We are the only show bringing you true Western adventure and history while showcasing the profound healing that happens when our nation's heroes connect with the power of horses. Join Russell True, Deborah Plum, Theo Windish, and Stephen Clausen as we share tales from the range and powerful stories of resilience, all working towards one goal while helping everyone to cowboy up for the next chapter of their life. Good morning, Russell. How are you?
I'm good.
We're coming to everybody from a brand new studio.
I know. It's very nice.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it still has got my ugly face on here, but what are you going to do? That's the one refinement they have not made.
Yeah. Well, they're working on it.
They're working on it. They should. So, how are things at the legendary White Stallion this morning?
Well, we're slower than we'd like to be, and it's just we're operating like we do every day, and summer's never super busy. It's intended not to be, but Europe, UK, they're either at the World Cup or at home, I think. So they're not at the White Stallion.
Well, that's I think when it's 108 outside, I think that's kind of expected.
Well, but they're the ones who they want.
Yeah, no,
I know
not
that very
and they love the heat. They love the heat.
But it's usually more like 105.
Right.
This 108 stuff, that's Phoenix.
Well, there is that. So today we've got a very interesting show. I think we've got a show about the Spanish barb, and we've got Jennifer and Heidi, and I'm going to have them talk about it because Jennifer Douglas is the co-chair, and Heidi Collings is also a co-chair of the Spanish Barb Horse Association. And this is a breed that is a very, I think, unique breed. And they're doing everything they can to save it. And I know that you and I both have a soft spot for that. So I'm going to bring them on. Heidi and Jennifer, are you there? Good morning.
I'm here.
Hi there.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us about your group. Tell us about what you've got
great.
going on.
It's beautiful.
Jennifer, tell us about what's going on with the Spanish Barb.
Yeah, Heidi, why don't you go ahead and start, and then I'll go ahead and explain about the project that we're doing.
Sounds great. My name is Heidi Collings. I'm the registrar for the Spanish Barb Horse Association. I've been involved with the association since about 2000, and the Spanish Barb Wilbur Cruz strain of horses since the early 90s. They have a very interesting history. They were discovered in 1989 on a ranch in southern Arizona near Aravaca, apparently not too far from your Rancho del Oso.
Right.
And they had been isolated on that ranch since the 1880s, when the original group of horses was purchased from a horse trader who was bringing horses up from Mexico on his way to the Kansas City stockyards, and sold horses along the way. Never got past New Mexico because the entire herd was already sold, so he never even made it all the way to Kansas City with them. Anyway, this was the group of horses that started what is now known as the Wilbur Cruz horses. They were isolated on the Wilbur Ranch all those years until in 1989, the last remaining part of the ranch was sold initially to the Nature Conservancy and then flipped to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to become part of the Buenos Aires Wildlife Refuge. And fortunately, one of the wildlife biologists, Steve Dobrat, that was working with Fish and Wildlife, noticed the horses, also had read the book that Eva had recently published about growing up on the ranch, and wondered if they were one and the same. Long story short, he contacted both Eva, brought in Spanish horse experts. Horses were looked at, blood typed, and determined to be virtually pure Spanish colonial horses from the time back in Padre Quino's time. We were very fortunate in that Eva donated the entire herd. There were around 90 horses initially, and then when they finally gathered them up, there was 77. Donated them to what is now the Livestock Conservancy. It had a different name back then. Phil Spangenberg was the leading expert on these horses at that time. He broke the horses up into breeding groups, found breeders who already had experience with colonial Spanish horses, which is the category that these guys fit into, and distributed them among breeders, mostly in the Southwest and one in California. I got involved with them when one literally got thrown into my backyard when my husband and I were ranching at Bumblebee, Arizona. And they came to visit us and grow up in our rough pastures as yearlings. And when they were 2.5, the owner wanted them back. But we got very curious and started playing with them. And the one horse that we started with was halter broken, nothing else. He had not had very much handling. We were literally riding and pushing cows on that horse in 3 hours. I knew there was something dramatically different about these horses at that point, and my husband and I decided we were going to try to start finding some mares and raising them. And they took over my life. We eventually moved to a ranch in New Mexico at the base of the Gila Mountains. And at one point, I was up to 72 horses. But they are so personable. They love to be with their people. It's almost like combining a horse and a dog together. They have a work ethic like no horse I've ever been around. You can turn them out in your pasture for a year, go get them and throw a saddle on, and it's like you rode yesterday. You don't have to go through any retraining process or round pen work or anything. They're horses that come from a time when they were your partner all day, every day, and they've not been selectively bred for any specific discipline, so they haven't had that incredible temperament bred out of them. They are the same horse that they were 150 years ago.
So you're in a position right now where you're trying to save this breed. What does that look like?
Well, there were 77 horses originally that came off the ranch, and today we still only have just over 100 live horses. It's a small group of breeders. It's kind of hard to get the word out to people what these horses are because everybody knows quarter horses and Arabians and paints and so on. And I was a Morgan bigot before these guys came along. I loved the Morgan versatility and endurance and so on. But once these guys came into my life, I don't want to ride anything else. So yes, we are always looking for people, not only future owners, but people who are interested in breeding them and spreading the words about these horses. We try to get to as many events as possible, like the Empire Ranch has their Cowboy Festival every year. We go and set up booths there and at different horse events around.
Russell, you're familiar with Empire Ranch, aren't you?
Oh yeah. No, I used to go down and speak for a few years, and I've seen both the Spanish Barb group and the Wilbur Cruz tent and all the info.
Okay.
And yeah, no, I'm real familiar.
Awesome. Okay, Jennifer, what do you do within the group?
Yeah, so I'm relatively new to the Spanish Barb Horse Association group, but I've known about these Wilbur Cruz horses for the last 25 years because I've been good friends with one of the original folks that have taken the horses off the ranch. My background, though, is in jumping and dressage horses. My entire life, that is what I've done, and I've been a trainer for about 20 years, as well as since 2005, we've been breeding warm bloods successfully in the U.S. But what's been real interesting for me with these horses, and what got me into these horses, was simultaneously with what I was doing, with these big horses, the warm bloods, the Hanoverians and Oldenburgs. I also started getting into conservation, protecting landrace breeds. With the Navajo churro sheep. I don't know if you guys know anything about the Navajo churro sheep, but they're also a landrace for the Southwest. And so I got heavily involved with them and protecting the genetics, working on the reservation, and I did several very, very successful campaigns starting in 2016, when the drought got pretty severe for the Southwest, and we were getting ready to literally lose the genetics on the Navajo reservation, especially with the elders. And so we did I went ahead and designed and executed this campaign that we literally saved the sheep on the reservation for 3 years. We were able to feed them. We were able to support. And what happened with that, which was so interesting, was that we were able, in the process, to do a census on traditional people, how many were left, how many of the sheep were left, and so forth. So I'm still very heavily involved with the churros, and I have a foundation that's working with just our drying and heating climate right now, how the sheep can protect the rangelands and everything. So I segued into these horses, not even thinking about the fact that these horses probably came over at the exact same time with Father Kino with the churro sheep, which is kind of crazy. And here I am with these horses. And so when I got involved, I went ahead and bought a mare that was recently in foal to another Wilbur Cruz stallion. It was a Wilbur Cruz mare. Actually, it was a mare from Heidi's herd on her ranch here in New Mexico. And she was an older mare. She was a teenage mare. And she was she was maiden. This was her first baby. And with all of my experience with breeding and knowing, with artificial insemination, frozen semen, live cover, all of that kind of stuff, I realized how difficult it is to get these teenage mares essentially bred, especially if they're maiden, and to make sure that everything is going to be okay with them. And as I got involved, I started realizing how few of these horses were left. And at that point, I realized, wow, okay, so what do I do? I've helped the churros the last 25 years. So now I think it's time with the Wilbur Cruz. And so that's how this campaign got started, was the realization that we need to get foals on the ground. And I ended up in January finding 3 mares that I was going to breed, and went ahead and leased 2 of them because they were owned by other people, started talking to many of the other owners. And then, of course, we were, getting in, we were all talking amongst one another, and then decided to go ahead and do this Mare Initiative campaign, where donors are actively involved in the collaboration of getting the last of these teenage mares bred, some of the best genetics that we have. And so that's how this got started. And so thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. So I know you're working on preserving the genetics of this particular breed, and we're going to go away for a quick break for Basecamp. When we come back, I want to talk about how you're going to go about preserving those genetics, what that means, and what the long-term benefit will be. Is that okay with you?
Sounds great.
Great. We'll be right back.
The True family welcomes you to the ranch that has been their home for over 55 years. Reconnect with nature, family, friends, and serenity. Ride through the unspoiled desert, rugged mountains, and cactus that have brought Hollywood filmmakers to the ranch for over 70 years. recognized nationally for excellence in service and value. Our ranch adventure vacations offer lodging, amenities, daily meals, and a vast array of ranch activities. Come visit White Stallion Ranch today for the adventure of your lifetime.
They never told us that the hardest part of the mission wasn't the field. It was the silence that followed when we returned home. Basecamp for Veterans knew transition wasn't a solo march. Basecamp knew it would take a community that spoke the language of service, along with relearning how to connect. Basecamp provides the grit, the gear, the direction, and the brotherhood to help warriors find their new North Star. But they can't hold the line alone. Your financial support provides more than just resources. Your support provides a way back. We're asking you to cowboy up for those who gave everything. Visit bcampinc.com today. Stand with veterans so no veteran has to stand alone. That's bcampinc.com.
We're back with Jennifer and Heidi. You know, a stat that I read, and I don't know if this is a real stat or not, and Russell, I think you'll appreciate this. The Spanish barb horses are more rare, and there's fewer of them than the giant panda. Now, is that accurate?
That
Yes.
would be accurate.
I can answer that because they said there's 100 of these horses, and I just read the pandas have had a nice little rebound.
Well, look, we could hope for the same thing with the Spanish barb horse, right?
And somebody sent me just a major digression. It was a video of a bunch of these pandas. I guess they're just dumb as animals get, and they keep falling and hurting themselves. And so there would be more pandas if they had a higher IQ. But that may be untrue. Who knows? You know, the internet. You know, the book you talk about, and I didn't know the specific connection. I knew when Eva Antonio Wilbur Cruz sold the ranch, the horses were there. There were a lot of different stories. I read some sort of, I don't know what to call it, almost a pamphlet or short book, and talked about the horses were going to be removed and sold at auction and all these sort of terrible stories. But it sounds like it was a bit different. Her book, which I enjoyed very much, Beautiful, Cruel Country, it was one of the causes of these horses getting saved, I learned today. And I'll say to anybody listening, Beautiful, Cruel Country, Wilbur, Ava, Wilbur, Antonio Wilbur Cruz. It's a book for people who are interested in Southern Arizona and ranching. And a young girl, 4, 5, 6 years old is the time span where her dad was clearly about half crazy, maybe 3/4 crazy. And some of the incredible adventures this little girl got up to on horseback with her dad, communal roundups, just bulls and cattle and riding the mountains. She called them her rock ponies, right? Am I right about the rock ponies? And
Yes, her little rock horses.
Rock horses, and we're particularly interested. By the way, Jennifer and the churro sheep, friends of ours, and at the 47 Ranch raised churros, and we've always thought it would be really exciting to bring some churros back into our ranch, Rancho de los and Sassabee, because of exactly what you were talking about. They're unique.
Let's do it. Yeah.
No, we're
doing these research projects right now. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
So, are you? I'm looking at some of my notes here. Are you using surrogate mares?
Yes. So, one of our big pushes right now is protecting the genetics. And
Sure.
So the best way to protect the genetics is getting foal babies on the ground.
Yeah.
And the best way to get babies on the ground is with especially with older mares, the teenager,
we're losing.
is to be able to Can you hear me? I'm hearing
you're
like
in
an
and
echo.
out. So yeah.
I
Okay,
can help
okay.
with that since Jennifer's.
Yeah. You're
Yes.
Go ahead.
The beauty of being able to do embryo flushes and use surrogate mares is that we will be able to have multiple offspring from these very these older mares that have great genetics tying back to the original foundation horses. So
well, that's
we would
exciting.
normally have to wait 5 years to get several babies on the ground from a mare. In 1 year, we can get 3 or 4.
Right. Well, I know a little bit about mainly because of our proximity and my enjoyment of the Ava's book. Tell me if this is true. I mean, these Wilbur Cruz horses are known to be, from my perspective, more like mules in their reaction to threats. Instead of spooking, running, bolting, escaping as their first reaction, they're more likely to face and assess and figure out what's going on. Have I got that right?
That's one of their most endearing qualities as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
They think situations through. They instead of bolting, they'll do a stop and check things out and then make decisions on where to go and what to do. Believe it or not, I've actually chased a bear on one of my young stallions.
So that says
Why don't
about
ask
you.
me? That was stupid.
Yeah, I was going to say that says something about your risk-taking ability. Well, I read a thing years ago, and everybody talks about those mules going down the Grand Canyon, and it's because of their sure-footedness. Well, actually, those trails are pretty good. And so it's really not about sure-footedness, is the way I understood the article. It was far more about this face and assess reaction, because donkeys grew up in the mountains, horses grew up or evolved is the right word, evolved in the plains. Horses flight, donkeys face and assess and fight if they have to, because they can't jump off the mountain and run down. So it sounds like the Wilbur Cruz, and I'm a dude rancher, and anytime you can find a horse that either through experience or through genetics stops, faces, and assesses, you found the right horse, because spooking is an issue.
And
absolutely, I've had a lot of mule people tell me that their temperament is very similar to mules from that standpoint.
Yeah, that was what I was kind of inferring. It's fascinating, really, isn't it?
They're very brave.
Yeah. Every year I used to go to something called Mule Days up in Bishop, California.
Sure.
And it was just incredibly interesting. And I was up there one year when there was an earthquake, and you could hear the barns just start to go nuts about 30 seconds in advance of the earthquake. Nobody knew what was going on. Then the earth started to shake. And I thought that was very interesting. I mean, I was there to actually witness that. And it was kind of fascinating. So how are you going about saving the genetics? What are you using? What techniques? Because we had someone on, or a lady on, about 1.5 years ago that did genetics, and he did something with Russell and his wife Laura's horse. Do you remember that, Russell?
Genetics.
Yeah, genetics when that.
Well, it was DNA testing.
Okay, DNA testing.
Yeah, and it was, I just digress for a moment. I had a quarter horse looking 1,200-pound horse, and she had a half Arab looking horse, and no connection whatsoever. And they were X generation relatives. What are the odds? And they looked about like a bear and a chimpanzee. So you never know in life. But yeah, that was DNA testing, and it was really fascinating. And that company, we should dig that up. They also can find predispositions to diseases, find genetic issues, and so it's both helpful in preserving your own individual horse's health, but also genetic selection so you can avoid certain issues going forward. So the technology in that regard is fascinating.
Pretty incredible. So how do you go about preserving the genetics of the Spanish barb horse or breed? What does that look like? Do you do?
So can you guys hear me okay right
Right now, yes.
Can you hear us?
Okay, good. I'm hearing a bit of an echo. I can hear you, but I'm hearing an echo.
Okay,
That's
well,
okay.
we're good on our side, so go ahead.
So how do you preserve the
Okay, great.
genetics of the Spanish barb?
Well, first of all, there has been some DNA testing with Dr. Sponberg and Dr. Cochran. Why don't you talk about that, and then I'll talk about what we're doing present.
Yeah, because Jennifer, you're really in and out, but Heidi, we're getting much better. So go ahead, Heidi, please.
Okay. An interesting thing on the DNA that you were just talking about is Texas A&M is now able to do ancestry testing on these horses, on any horse. But one of the things that is unique about the Spanish Barbs and Wilbur Cruz is the total absence of thoroughbred and Arabian, and they're virtually the only light horse breed left in the world that don't have an influence of those two breeds.
That's another thing I'm learning today. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So what we're doing to preserve these is we recognize the need to help our mare owners because of the expenses of doing things like artificial insemination and embryo transplants and so on. So we started an initiative we call it SOS, Save Our Stallions, which that's also on our list to do is raise money to help train and collect stallions and have their semen free for future use. But what we're working on this year, due to the age of some of our very best mares, is doing things like embryo flushes, where we impregnate the mare, flush the embryo out, transfer it to a surrogate mare, or it can also be frozen. And we have a relationship with the USDA and their, I think it's called the germplasm program, that they will actually take semen and frozen embryos and store them for the future. So we're trying to help raise money to accomplish some of these things. Just for a frozen embryo, it costs about $5,000 per embryo, successful embryo, and you're unfortunately not always successful on every one. So it's very expensive to teach a stallion to cover and test his semen and make sure that it can be viable to be frozen is minimum of $3,500. So that's all of these things are extremely expensive and very difficult for individuals to handle on their own. Therefore, we've launched this program trying to interest donors in sponsoring a mare through her breeding plan, whatever we decided is best for that horse, for her age, her health, and so on.
And how do people help? Where do they go? What's the...
We have started a website called wilburcruzhorse.com, and on there you will see the mares that we've selected and learn about the program itself and the expenses involved and how to go ahead and do donations.
So say that site again, please. And Wilbur is WILBUR, Cruz, CRUZ.
Exactly. WILBURCRUZ. RUCE horse.com. You can also access it from our association website, which is SpanishBarb.com. That's a little easier to remember. And there's a banner right at the top that will take you to the other website that talks about the program.
Okay, you said Wilbur Cruz, CRUCE or CRUSE?
CRUCE.
Okay, good, because the information I have is SE. I want to be sure I have it correct because I want to post the link on the podcast as well.
Great. That would be much appreciated.
Okay, no problem. So you've got all this going on, and the two of you are obviously you're all in. I mean, this is critically important to the two of you.
Absolutely. We have a very excellent team of members that are all in as well. Everybody really pulling their weight and taking on different aspects of this.
Okay. How many members do you have?
We run typically between 70 and 100 membership. So we're a very small group, but very dedicated.
Okay.
All volunteers.
Well, we've already kind of, a friend of ours, Anna, sent me this literature and on this initiative, and we'll make sure our guests who are, as a group, pretty horse-centered, and they'll love to know about this. I one of the things that offends me periodically is when somebody in the horse world, and the horse world's diverse, right? We've got a dressage and jumping person here, an area of horsemanship that I know zero about, and you who have the Wilbur Cruz horses, and it's such a diverse world, the horse world. But I hate it when somebody turns their nose up at trail or dude horses, which is, of course, my living. And I think these are the greatest group of horses. They take good care of a different person every week, and they have pure hearts and work hard and certainly earn their way to a good retirement. And so when I hear about these Wilbur Cruz horses and their unique attributes and their very critical status at this point, I can sit here and we'll follow up individually, but I can commit True Ranch Collection and White Stallion Ranch 100%. If we could get some mares here, or we have surrogate mares that would be available, and get a breeding program here. And one of the nice things would be if we were able to work it out at the ranches. A lot of people come to the ranch and they're horse people, and so they'll get to know about these Wilbur Cruz horses. And I think Spanish Barb Mustangs in general are an interesting group. I know you guys agree with that, but as somebody who's, our string has everything from Belgian draft horses to Arabians to quarter horses to horses that probably have who knows how many breeds, including Morgans. You used to be a Morgan bigot. I remember that. And so I love that term. Everybody's a bigot in the horse world, isn't that the case? Only good horse is a something. So we're in. I know, Jennifer, you're in Silver City. I mean, either you guys are New Mexico. That's our neighbors. Come over and look at what we do. Or we'll go over and visit you, but we'd love to get involved.
Sounds
We're
great.
in.
So, okay, I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Great synergy got put together on the Cowboy Up Basecamp podcast. And speaking about Basecamp for veterans, I want to go away to a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the Spanish Barb horse and how well suited it is for Basecamp for veterans, and how nice I think this synergy could be between White Stallion, Basecamp, and the Spanish Barb Association. So we'll be right back.
The True family welcomes you to the ranch that has been their home for over 55 years. Reconnect with nature, family, friends, and serenity. Ride through the unspoiled desert, rugged mountains, and cactus that have brought Hollywood filmmakers to the ranch for over 70 years. Recognized nationally for excellence in service and value. Our ranch adventure vacations offer lodging, amenities, daily meals, and a vast array of ranch activities. Come visit White Stallion Ranch today for the adventure of your lifetime.
They never told us that the hardest part of the mission wasn't the field. It was the silence that followed when we returned home. Basecamp for Veterans knew transition wasn't a solo march. Basecamp knew it would take a community that spoke the language of service, along with relearning how to connect. Basecamp provides the grit, the gear, the direction, and the brotherhood to help warriors find their new North Star. But they can't hold the line alone. Your financial support provides more than just resources. Your support provides a way back. We're asking you to cowboy up for those who gave everything. Visit bcampinc.com today. Stand with veterans so no veteran has to stand alone. That's bcampinc.com.
And we're back with Jennifer and Heidi. Something that is amazing that happens at White Stallion Ranch is something called Basecamp for Veterans. And they bring in veterans that have post-traumatic stress disorder, and they work with equine therapy. And what's really unique is they work with the family of the veteran as well. And they do some things that I think are really quite amazing. And after reading the bio of the Spanish Barb horse and how calm they are, and like you said at the beginning of the show, you could take them from just being a horse to doing amazing things in 3 or 4 hours. I want to talk about the temperament of the horse, what makes the Spanish Barb horse as unique as it is, and how well this would work with veterans that have PTSD.
Well, immediately when I first got associated with these horses last year, I realized that they were very, very different from all of the other breeds that I've worked with over the years. And the main difference is that they think. It's almost as if, just like we were talking earlier, that they're not reactive. They're not like a thoroughbred or an Arabian or even a quarter horse in that matter, where when something does startle them or scare them, they kind of plant their feet, and then they look at it, and then they investigate it. And that always immediately was so interesting to me. But the other thing that is that would be just really remarkable with these families, as well as with the PTSD, is that these horses, they're very attached to people. And even though they have their own specific person, they still react and act different than a lot of horses, where they are engaging. They want to engage. So I can just imagine how phenomenal they'll be with these veterans and their families.
Interesting. So, I know that, something I've learned from Russell is how much of a partner your horse can be.
Well, and I thought it was an interesting comment
Yes.
Heidi made, was these horses are sort of blast from the past, my words, not hers, where horses and humans were partners. It's like a farmer and his tractor. Mm-hmm. And so they're a throwback in a very positive way, is the way I took that. Is that a fair statement, Heidi or Jennifer?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
When you were depending on your horse every day, you needed a horse that was dependable. And like I say, they're almost like combining a horse and a stock dog together. They want to be with you. They want to please you. They're your buddy. They do the work. They hang with you. They're just amazing that way.
Well, one of the things that Russell and White Stallion do when a guest comes in, they get the same horse all week long. As Russell has shown me, they develop a relationship with that horse very, very rapidly. and very seldom does anyone use a different horse during the week. And these people come back year after year and they want the same horse they had before based on the relationship, and which I just find to be remarkable. I just find that to be incredible.
Oh, yeah. I can see how the horses would just blossom situation, because they are like for instance at my farm, we have our warm bloods here, we have some of our stallions, we've got now our Wilbur-Crews, we have a young foal, one of the few foals that are being born this year, and he's now 3 weeks old, and seeing the interactions immediately, especially with these young foals, and just how they react is very, very different than the many foals that I've dealt with before. So you see it. We're seeing this personality from like our souls, which is really, really interesting. So it is a blast from the past when you're thinking about that. And he's personable. He wants to be with us. He's lovely. He's incredibly sweet. Where he's not doing anything naughty. I can just imagine how well they would work in these situations that you guys have.
Right.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about it, but they're pretty. I mean, they're nice looking. They've got color and different things. Back to I just want to ask, because I'm a history guy. I guess we know they're virtually 100% Spanish colonial horse. Is it thought that they came in the 1500s and then Kino moved around with some? Father Kino, for people who don't know the area, was a giant figure in mission building and working with the native people and all that. But Kino, is a huge name in southern Arizona and northern Mexico. So did he bring them from Mexico, or did he bring them into the area, or do we know?
Well, when the Spanish started seriously settling in Mexico and even over into Florida, there's Spanish colonial horses that are in Florida and the Carolinas as well, different land races. They set up breeding farms in the Caribbean, and a lot of horses in Puerto Rico and different islands there were breeding farms there. And then rather than transporting horses all the way from Spain, they would set up these breeding farms and then propagate from those breeding farms into Mexico and into North America. So when Padre Kino came along, he established Mission Dolores and Rancho Dolores and Sonora, and he was responsible for producing not just horses, but goats, pigs, cattle, livestock, everything that was needed for settlement as the Spanish expanded up into further into North America. So these horses, we can't say that they came from Kino's herd, but we do know that, and we had confirmation recently from the great-grandson of Juan Sepulveda, the horse trader who brought these horses up in that area, but they came from the area of Mission Dolores. And since he was Padre Kino's, his horses were the greatest influence in that area. That's how we know they trace back to that time period.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's a similar story. We raise Criollo cattle, which it's kind of a similar story, a little more of a success in terms of numbers at this point. But they were isolated Mexican cattle, Spanish cattle in Mexico that have now been bred up, and they have a lot of wonderful attributes, and that's the kind of cattle we raise in Tombstone and Rancho de la Osa. Talk about, as we wind this up, just remind us how serious this extinction issue is.
It's really serious. One of the main things that we need to really be aware of is that land races, as you just mentioned, they're what a land race is. If no one really knows what it is, It's a species that has adapted to a specific environment, not for 50, 60 years, but centuries. And what happens with that species is in that adaptation that everything about them manifests into how they can survive in that environment. And for us, as in the Criollo cows, as in the Wilbur Cruz horses, and also the Navajo sheep, they have adapted to one of the most severe environments in the world, essentially, is our desert environment, which also includes Chihuahua, Mexico. So for us, and especially personally for me, is that knowing that the Wilbur Cruz horse is a land race, and knowing that biodiversity is being lost so quickly around the world, and especially in land race species around the world, and that we are in a critical situation with these horses, that it's kind of a no-brainer for me to be able to assist as much as that we possibly can with these horses, to be able to save these genetics for our future in the equine world. Because once they're gone, we can never come back.
And you've made that case really, really well. But from an outside group, aren't there a couple of groups that rate these really high in vulnerability?
Yes, the two livestock groups that are interested in equines, rare equines in the United States are the Livestock Conservancy and Equus Survival Trust. And both of those have the Wilbur Cruz horses rated as critically endangered.
Wow.
So you guys need some help. We gotta do this.
So how do people find out more and maybe donate money, that sort of thing? What do they do next? Where do they go?
They can contact us through...
They come to our website,
SpanishBarb.com or WilburCruzHorse.com. Either one of those will get you to the correct place. That'll give you information, all the information on our program, give you a lot more information on the horses in general. You'll get to see pictures of these beautiful animals. And we welcome any emails, contacts, phone calls. We're happy to talk about our animals and about our dedication to saving this extremely important group of horses.
Okay, and I'll be sure that information goes out with this podcast so people see it. I so appreciate. I mean, and again, I'm going to go back to the stat that I said. There's more giant there's more giant pandas than there are of the Spanish Barb breed, and that's a pretty unique statistic. And it sounds like the Spanish Barb horses are a lot smarter, from what I've been able to discern.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So of course I may be. This is one of the better podcasts. Unfortunately, we had some technical, as good as technology is, it's not perfect, but this was great, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for allowing us to share this information.
Love being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Russell, one of the things that you say consistently is we need to preserve these things, because once they're gone, and they're not coming back.
Well, I've got a weird little analogy to that.
Okay.
So I was reminded of this. I was reading the other day, and I knew this, and it had slipped my mind, that a scientist was looking at Gila monsters years ago, these poisonous lizards that we have out here, venomous lizards. And for whatever reason, this, educated specialist figured out that they can go a long time without eating. And so there was blood sugar maintenance stuff going on. So this person researched, and that was what became the GLP-1 drug category, that is taking weight off people and helping people with type 2 diabetes. And why is that relevant to this conversation? Well, the Gila monsters were endangered, and maybe they still are. So biodiversity is a good thing.
Biodiversity is a very good thing. So I appreciate you joining us today on the Cowboy Up Basecamp for Veterans podcast. We look forward to the next time we join you and that you join us. And I'm Steve Clausen for Russell True, White Stallion Ranch, and Basecamp for Veterans saying thank you. And remember to cowboy up in everything you do.
The True family welcomes you to the ranch that has been their home for over 55 years. Reconnect with nature, family, friends, and serenity. Ride through the unspoiled desert, rugged mountains, and cactus that have brought Hollywood filmmakers to the ranch for over 70 years. Recognized nationally for excellence in service and value. Our ranch adventure vacations offer lodging, amenities, daily meals, and a vast array of ranch activities. Come visit White Stallion Ranch today for the adventure of your lifetime.
They never told us that the hardest part of the mission wasn't the field. It was the silence that followed when we returned home. Basecamp for Veterans knew transition wasn't a solo march. Basecamp knew it would take a community that spoke the language of service, along with relearning how to connect. Basecamp provides the grit, the gear, the direction, and the brotherhood to help warriors find their new North Star. But they can't hold the line alone. Your financial support provides more than just resources. Your support provides a way back. We're asking you to cowboy up for those who gave everything. Visit becampinc.com today. Stand with veterans so no veteran has to stand alone. That's becampinc.com.